Everybody, thank you for being here. What we're going to talk about today is kind of the heart and, not kind of, is the heart and soul of Nebraska agriculture. Four words that I keep focused on as your governor: kids, taxes, agriculture, values. We spent a fair amount of time talking on things about kids, and today agriculture. I think that it's really, really important that we not only defend agriculture, but that we get on offense and be assertive in our position of agriculture. So today we're going to talk about bioreactor meat. Some call it lab-grown meat, but the hardcore reality is it's bioreactor. We're going to talk about egg data, privacy, water quality, and a task force. So I want to thank Senator Jacobson and Senator DeKay for being a part of it and carrying a couple bills. I think one of the things as you go across the state of Nebraska, and if you talk to car dealers, I don't care if it's right on the river, I don't care where it's at, and when agriculture's doing good, guess what's happening? They're selling gobs of vehicles. The better agriculture does, the better our entire economy goes, and it's from the river all the way out to Harrison. It's needless to say our lifeblood. So I'm really excited to work on legislation this year that will where we'll lead the nation and protect and grow our agricultural industry. So obviously, everywhere across the world, everywhere we go, guess what the number one thing that people want? Nebraska beef. I've been on trade missions to Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, Czech Republic, and Germany, and every fun event centers around Nebraska steaks. So I think that it's really, really important that we protect our number one industry. It's important that we get on the offense so that Nebraska farmers and ranchers are not undermined. Senator DeKay is introducing legislation on this topic at my request that will ban Petri dish meat, I call it bioreactor meat, from being made or distributed or sold in Nebraska. It's really simple. If somebody wants to eat that stuff, they're welcome to it. They're just not going to find it on Nebraska grocery stores. They can get it through Amazon or however they want. This builds on my executive order from last year prohibiting state agencies from buying or using lab-grown meat. And so, Senator DeKay, grateful for your support and your work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. First, I'd like to thank Governor Pillen for taking a proactive position on the potential for lab-grown meats to be introduced into the food supply. I am pleased to work in conjunction with the governor on legislation that would halt its manufacture and sale in Nebraska while we learn more about this novel protein source and its implications for food safety, its impacts on our economy, as well as its consistency with our cultural values. Cultured meat products rely on the public's preference for meat as a protein source and market their products in a way that co-opts consumers' perception of the cultural, nutritional, culinary values associated with meat derived from livestock that livestock industry has carefully cultivated over time. Until or unless there is clear labeling rules that adequately disclose that cultured meat is not real meat, its sale allows lab meats to unfairly benefit from industry investments in marketing and production by an industry-backed organization whose primary goal is to end animal husbandry, which is so important to our state. There are clear recognized nutritional benefits of meat as a source of protein. While there may be some replication, it is uncertain whether manufactured meat protein is a substitute for natural meat source as essential dietary needs. I question elevating lab meat to a level of equivalency with real meat. I'm looking forward to robust discussion of the topic with the introduction of the governor's bill. Thank you again.
Thanks, Senator DeKay. Appreciate it a lot. I think the other thing that's important to add to this is that some might say, gee whiz, that just seems to be a little bit aggressive. The hardcore reality, starting back in 1990 with an organization called PETA, people with the ethical treatment of animals, and then the greatest modern day Trojan horse, the Humane Society of the United States, that's been around for years, where they ask everybody across the country to give $19 a month showing a dog or cat. And obviously all of us get a part of it because we're compassionate. 1% of their budget would go to helping dogs and cats. 99% of their budget went to 100% attacking livestock producers. Their goal is simple. They want to put animal production agriculture out of business. I think that it's really, really important when we think about Nebraska agriculture. It's about our people, it's about our water, it's about crops, and it's about livestock. So that takes us, when we talk about crops and the ability to make sure that we can evolve from a commodity business to a value-added agriculture business. It's going to be absolutely essential that we, the farmers and producers, own our data. Because the technology is evolving where we know absolutely every single thing that is taking place in a precision moment on our land. We, the farmers and ranchers, cannot be duped to give that up because it will be the lifeblood of the future. And so Senator Jacobs is introducing legislation that will make sure the ownership of the data that takes place on our land, make sure that the data that is in chips in our cattle stay with who owns them in the land so that it can't be sold off to large publicly traded companies. The data is, my view, the data is our farmers and ranchers' pot of gold for the future. Nebraska is leading the nation with this policy. We're one of the largest agricultural states in the country. We have the most diversity of any state, and we raise more per acre than anywhere in the world. So Senator Jacobson, thanks a million for being a leader in this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Well, my staff's going to be real nervous because I put my script away and I like to just kind of speak from the gut. So this is an important bill to me. I've spent my entire life involved in agriculture. I grew up on a rented farm in Clay County, and I remember driving a WD Alice Chalmers tractor with a 3-bottom plow where you downshift when you got into gumbo areas, and that was always a lot of fun.
And then you got stuck.
And then you got stuck, yeah. So what a fun time. But I've always loved agriculture, always loved farming, and I can tell you that agriculture has changed significantly over the years, okay? We're to the point now to where you look at the cost and the technology that is in our equipment, the technology that's out there in terms of how we plant, how we fertilize, how we irrigate, and then real-time information when we harvest. And you think, for the farmer standpoint, this is valuable information. Okay, we're at a point to where obviously you've got auto steer on equipment, where literally you set up the line and it just drives for you. You're riding in the tractor and it's or the combine and it's steering it. But you also have so much more. The tractors today are giving you real-time information on the gallons per hour that you're burning throughout and instantaneously, and where you're at the time. It's going to talk to you about the slippage. It's going to give you all this data so that you can be more efficient. But where it really gets dicey in my mind is when you start looking at the planting and the seeds that are going into your planters. Now, many of you think, okay, I remember starting off with a 2-bottom, our 2-row planter, and then a 4-row, and now you've got 48-row planters. And some of you kind of think about this, that you're going on a circle pivot, and you got a 48-row planter, or even a 24-row planter. Well, when you get to the edges, you're either going to overplant or underplant, but no, the technology today is such that the individual row units will shut off as they reach the point so they don't double plant. Amazing technology. But I would tell you that data is also telling us exactly, you plug in what seed variety you're planting. It's going to tell you exactly what the population rate that you're dropping was. And then it's going to follow that all the way through. When you fertilize, you can set your fertilizer machines with the technology hooked up with the tractor to vary the rate of fertilizer or chemicals that are being dropped at any one point in the field. Then if you've got a pivot irrigation system, you have the ability today to have systems that are programmed whereby the sprinkler heads themselves on the pivot can shut off and turn on as they need to be. But the biggest part of this is the combines. The combines are harvesting, and they're telling you in real time the moisture content of the grain, and it's also telling you the yield per acre. Now think about with AI, and if you could collect all of this data, and with the consolidation of all of these providers, with seed companies generally being owned by the chemical companies, if you could aggregate all this data, think about how powerful that tool would be in terms of estimating crop yields. And if you know what the crop yields are going to be, and you've got more information than USDA has and Pro Farmer and others that are doing crop estimates, look at the ability to go game the grain markets with this information. So there's a lot of power in consolidating that information, but most importantly, we want farmers and ranchers to be able to protect that data and opt to hold that data private and not have it sold to someone else, so that they bought it for their own use, not for others to purchase and aggregate and use it as a tool potentially against them. So that's part of what's in this bill. I'm looking forward. I'm glad the governor asked me to carry the bill, and I look forward to have, with the help of my colleagues, to get that bill passed. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jacobson. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
I think it's when we're talking about this cutting edge technology and we're talking about cutting edge policy, I think maybe it's important for us to grab a hold of history. I love to tell the story of my grandpa. He was a World War I veteran. The mural just out on the north side reminds me of Grandpa, because when he came home from World War I, he started farming with not an oxen, but a horse and a plow. My dad always told the story about the first time that he drove a tractor, got on a tractor. So you just think about a proud German farmer that loved his horses, and he got on a tractor. He was driving that tractor, and he was getting close to the fence and got all flustered and didn't know what to do, and all he could say is, "Whoa, you son of a gun, whoa." And then he drove into the fence. I think it's an important story because in some of these processes, we're going to drive into fence. That's just over 100 years ago, and you think about the change from using tractors and never irrigating. And I think the other, for the state of Nebraska, that's really important, just even in my lifetime, when I was a kid in the 60s, we dried out half the time. 100 miles west of the river, we dried out half the time now with center pivot irrigation. And when I was a kid, my dad would say, "Gosh, wish Grandpa would have stopped in Iowa or Illinois, because they got dark soils and ice rains between the rivers." Well, guess what? Do you know of any farmer, any landowner in Nebraska that would trade their land for Iowa or Illinois land? No way. Because of people, our water, our crops, and our livestock, there's nobody in Nebraska would trade. Our agricultural industry is the leader of the country. We have 5 agroecological zones, and so it's really, really important that we protect it, that we grow it. And then with that, I think the other piece that is really, really incredibly important is our water. The Ogallala aquifers are pot of gold. It has transformed agriculture as we have evolved and learned how to irrigate in the last 60 years. And I think that my experience almost 2 years ago to now, when I met Alonzo Denny from the Sani Sioux tribe, and he taught me about what his grandfather taught him about everything we do, that it lasts a long time. I said, I got it. He said, no, Mr. Governor, it lasts for 7 generations. That impacted me a lot. I hope it does every Nebraskan. And when I tell the story, because when you start thinking about things and looking at things from 7 generations, you might see things a little differently. I can tell you I certainly have, and that's why we are proposing a merger between the Department of Energy and Environment and the Department of Natural Resources, where we can have the focus on water quantity and our water quality like never before. I think that what has taken place in the state in the last 60 years has been a process that's been satisfactory, but when we look at all of the extraordinary opportunities of people wanting to come here, it's really, really important that we have a great handle on on the quantity of water we're using, which we don't today. So we are proposing a merger of the Department of Natural Resources and Energy with the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Energy and Environment. I think that what it will help us do is focus on water quality and quantity. It improves Nebraska's long-range planning for water and natural resource management of soil and health. Senator Brandt's not able to be here today, but Senator Brandt will be carrying and championing that bill. Also want to talk a minute about, with the focus on water and water quality, we're embarking on creating a governor's task force on water quality and quantity. I think that it's really, really important that we start working together to solve the problem. I think that as we talk about being able to measure how much water we use at every stop, the question for everybody is if we measured how much water we used every day, would we use more water or less? What do you say? Would we use more or less water? We'd use less 100% of the time. It's the greatest way to protect our aquifer that we use real-time technology that's available from a lot of places where we start knowing how much water we use. We need to do it within industry. We need to be able to do it within farming, and then we can be protecting our water. And then the second piece would simply be focusing on our water quality and come to grips with our nitrate issues. There's a lot of technology. There's much better understanding of what happens with farming practices. And so by being able to put our task force together, we'll be able to examine all of that work. I think it's really important where we can focus on our water and on our soils, that we really, really can improve our water quality. The unicameral, we put forth a study that funds to produce a study on drinking water quality. Well, that'll be getting released. And certainly the goal is that we protect our aquifer for 7 generations and we make an improvement on our water quality immediately. So I guess I think that's pretty well most everything that we have to talk about today. Be happy to ask for questions. Yes.
Senator Decay. It was a little bit hard. I didn't quite understand. You said something about the same organization that wants to destroy animal husbandry is behind the technology that's producing lab-grown meat, or what exactly were you mean there?
The question is the same organization wanting to destroy animal husbandry? There are organizations like the governor alluded to that want to do away with animal production in the state of Nebraska, in the United States, and this is part of the process that we're going to go through to make sure that our way of life, our livestock, and our product that we can put on the dinner table stays intact going forward.
But are you saying there's some sort of connection between, for example, lab-grown meat?
There are links out there that tie people together across the spectrum of what we're talking about. So whether they want to completely do away with it, with a stake on our plate, there are organizations that want to push away from that. I don't know if they're directly tied to the lab-grown meat, but this is a step forward in that direction to start eliminating that process.
Andrew?
How do you find lab-grown meat? Can you even get it here in Nebraska?
The question is, can we get lab-grown meat in the state of Nebraska? Right now, we can't, but we are taking steps to make sure that we can keep our meat source on the grocery store, the meat shop shelves, and if people want to go outside and buy that particular product, that they can still do that, but we want to eliminate that process in the state of Nebraska, and we want to protect the label of a meat product rather than a meat substitute.
If I can pile on to that, Andrew, let's just use an example. Dairy industry. Dairy industry is incredibly important for the planet, and yet you can go in and buy almond milk. Are you kidding me? Almond milk? There's no way. It's almond nut juice. It's almond nut juice, it's not milk. And it is absolutely a full-blown attack on the milk industry. We're going to be aggressive and not let that happen to the rest of the industries.
This would ban soy milk, almond milk.
No, this bill is talking about everything that goes along with protein and improving the labeling. So I'm using that as an example when you're saying, asking specifically about meat protein on shelves today. It will be here if we allow it.
What business does the state have telling retailers what products they can or can't carry?
Well, from my seat, our job is to make sure that we protect the livelihood of Nebraska. Our job is to protect consumers. Our job is to grow agriculture and defend agriculture. And so, yeah, I think that that's a responsibility. There's most of us want government out of our hair, but there's places where government needs to step in and protect us, just like not allowing kids to get tattoos until they're 18, not to be able to buy cigarettes, the bioreactor meat. You have to be a chemist. You can be a PhD chemist and you don't fully understand what the heck is all in that. There's no transparency with it. And we're just going to protect consumers and be on the offense and stop playing defense.
Are there any health concerns with lab? Are there health concerns with lab-grown meat?
Well, there's a various sundry of different ways that people are trying to produce the fake meat, and if you want to look at the list for the few that will be transparent, there's gobs of different chemicals that you can't even pronounce the names. So I think that it is it's not good for consumers and health concerns and everything under the sun when it's not natural.
And again, going back to Fred's question, why not let the free market work? People choose the best meat for a reason. Why not just let it, hey, stand up and you can compete?
Well, that's why I use the example of the almond nut juice. When there's enough money behind things that can really sway the public in a direction that's not healthy, and that's where we have to stand up, and that's what we're doing.
If I could join in on that, I would just tell you too that as the governor mentioned, you go around the world and people know about Nebraska beef. Now I like Nebraska pork as well, but I'm just telling you, but when you go around the world, people know about Nebraska beef. Well, we want people to go into a grocery store and know that they're buying Nebraska beef, not some lab-grown substitute that's in the store. And so you can say, well, we can do labeling. Okay, well, that's expensive, and you're going to be dealing with who's doing the labeling, how do we know for sure what's there. We have a product here that supports the largest industry that we have in Nebraska, which is agriculture, and the biggest part of agriculture is the cattle industry. So we have an amazing product in Nebraska beef, and we want to protect that as well. And it's often what we're finding, as when the governor used the example of almond milk and these other substitutes. Those are labeled, and of course the end game with that in many cases is to drive out the dairy industry over time. And they did see a dip in the sales of milk because of these substitutes that have come in. And it's not because milk is bad for you. Milk is great for you. The problem is that they don't like, those same players don't like the fact that you've got dairy cows that are being milked, and somehow they think that's inhumane. So there's a bigger picture here. There's a bigger agenda when it comes to attacking animal agriculture, and I think that's what this theme is all about.
Senator James, while you're there, I was going to ask you a question. So is your bill with protecting the data, would it create like an opt-in system?
That's how I would see it, is that farmers would have to, and ranchers would have to opt in to allow their data to be used or sold. Now, we're working on the bill yet, and obviously I'd also want to be protective of the idea that if we're going to let you use this technology, that you've got to automatically opt in. So we want to be able to protect that as well. But there's a lot of money being spent. I remember years ago when a bag of seed corn was $35, okay? And I remember what we paid per acre. Well, now you're looking at the cost per acre that's around $150 an acre for seed corn. And it's because it's owned and it's really controlled by the major chemical companies who have brought in, and they have brought great technology into the seed. We're seeing yields that we've never seen before. So there's value, and that's why that price is being paid. But we want to be careful that there's, at the end of the day, farmers, this is their data that's coming from their farms. We're using the technology from these technology companies to gather it. But we've got to make sure that we have the ability to hold on to that data if we choose to keep that data. And I do think there's a lot of things that could be done if you want to aggregate all of that information, particularly with the use of AI. Can give you some significant power, and obviously the largest corporate entities that would own the chemical companies, they would have the capacity to be able to generate that information and be able to probably use it to really track markets and potentially manipulate ag markets, and that's something that very much concerns agriculture, farmers, and ranchers.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is also for Senator Peterson. Kind of touched on it a little bit. Are you at all concerned if this bill goes through that the technology companies will say you can't use our technology if you're not going to opt in to let us have a share of the data?
I'm counting on capitalism at work. They'd love to have the money for the technology. In other words, the technology for the most part is embedded. Like, for example, the combines and tractors, that technology is embedded in those combines and tractors. And I can assure you they're going to want to sell those combines and tractors with that technology on board. You're also paying a fee to have the technology work. So I'm not overly concerned about that, no. And I think probably in some cases they may have agreements to share the data, but we think it's important that the farmer and rancher has that choice.
Can you ask the governor just how much money you can save by combining the agencies, by merging agencies?
Yeah, the question is how much money we save by combining the agencies. Obviously, the administrative staffs will shrink. We don't have a dollar amount exactly what that'll amount to. My vision of it is impacting 7 generations, decreasing water use because we'll be able to evolve with the quantities and then improving our water quality. I think that those are important pieces, and I think in the end, what's really, really important, the vision of Nebraska agriculture is really simple, that we don't put our corn and our soybeans, our commodities on barges and sell it around the world, that we sell value-added products. That's why it's incredibly important that the data stays with the farm, with the producer, so that we can evolve over time and get out of the commodity business where we're rewarded for everything that we do. As I've said, we've been giving the topsoil away for generations since the industrialization's taking place, it's time that we make sure that Nebraska farmers are protected. So thank you all for being here today and helping us with this really, really important legislation. Thank you.